The population of Lake Erie last year was 80 million, and lake-wide they caught 9.2 million. Unbelievable. Hey, once again, I'm Captain Jim Hanley with my buddy Jason Robinson from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, and he's got a longer title, so we'll put it down there. Jason, it's great to be back. This is our third time doing this.
Third time, yeah.
People love this. They love all the information that you have. Walleye fishing on Lake Erie is a billion-dollar industry. I think it's like 7 point some billion dollars. Here in New York State, there's a lot of us who run charters, but lake-wide, there's just like hundreds and hundreds of charters out west. So we're going to be talking about lake-wide, but we're also going to be concentrating on New York State. Tell us what happened last year with this unbelievable walleye fishing we had.
Well, we're running out of ways to describe it. It's the best it's ever been. So it's the best we've ever measured. It's the best that anyone alive has ever experienced. Over a fish per hour, just record setting across the board. Yep.
It was unbelievable. I know there were days I would go out and I would almost feel guilty because we would set 2 lines and we couldn't get the other lines in the water because those would have a fish on it. And we were generally done with trips between maybe 3 hours was a long trip because we had to catch 24 instead of 18. And it was just unbelievable. So tell us what's going on, what happened, and I'm sure people would love to hear everything.
So, there's a few reasons why the fishing was so good. As serious walleye fishermen on Lake Erie know, the migration from the West Basin is very important for us, and that population has been thriving, and all those fish are old enough now to be making that full migration.
Right.
Our East Basin populations of walleye are also thriving, doing incredible, and so we benefit from that here in New York, and there really wasn't much food around last year. So the walleye that were there were super hungry, and they seemed like they were eager to bite.
So what was the population last year, and what was caught? I mentioned at the beginning, but let's go through that.
So last year, we estimate the population lake-wide was around 80 million walleye in Lake Erie. And we caught, or collectively, all the 5 jurisdictions caught 9.2 million walleye last year.
And that includes Michigan, Ohio,
Pennsylvania, New York, and then the province of Ontario. In Canada. So that's our estimates. And this year, we're thinking it's closer to 58 million. So the population has come down.
Right.
But it still looks to be an excellent year. I don't think it's going to be as good as it was last year, record setting, but it should be very good fishing again.
It was so good that we used techniques that, some people would say, I don't want to get them trolling, or I don't want to use bottom bouncers. I want to go jigging. So we went jigging and we caught them. It was unbelievable. It was just absolutely great. So New York State, what was New York State's creel?
New York State, 173,000. So fairly modest compared to the rest of the lake. And that's just because we don't have the number of people fishing.
Right.
They caught 230. So some of them were throwbacks this year, or people were catching them and releasing them, some of the smaller ones.
Well, that's crazy. I know a lot of people watching right now will say they contributed at least 4,000 or 5,000 to that creel. I know we had record. I have no idea how many we caught. I probably ran 50 walleye trips, and on the average, I think there were 3 days all summer long that we didn't limit out, and it was either post cold front or earlier in the season, but it was just crazy. And we got to talk about Hanover. The Hanover fish cleaning station had to shut down because their sewer system couldn't handle the guts and all the
I heard about that, yeah.
That was we did an interview with Tom, and he mentioned that you were allowed to clean your fish, but you had to take your guts home. So a lot of raccoons and yards around Western New York were loaded up with walleye guts. So that's pretty incredible.
So about 2 in 5 anglers got their limit last year in New York, and I know that doesn't sound like a lot, maybe to someone like you who's limiting out all the time, but that's an unprecedented level of success.
It's tremendous because a lot of people. It gave her an opportunity for a lot of people who weren't really proficient walleye fishermen to catch a few. And when you catch a few, you get confidence. And then, channels like mine that show you techniques and stuff, we get a lot of feedback from people that most of the stuff I do is bottom bouncing.
Yeah.
So it's easy to do. It's easy to adapt. And pretty much last year, we would laugh and say, it depended on what brand of beer can you threw out with a hook on that you could catch them. So anyway, enough about that. Let's talk a little bit about what were they eating?
Typically out here in Lake Erie, walleye are eating smelt and goby in New York. This year, we do our surveys in the summertime. We saw something we've never seen before in terms of what they were eating. They were eating mayflies.
Wow.
Which I never thought I would live to see that, but that's how many walleye there were feeding. They were resorting to eating mayflies.
And there was a lot of mayfly heads.
There was a lot of mayflies, but you'd still expect them to be focusing on smelt typically.
Well, they were hungry, that's for sure.
Yep.
The competition for food from one species of fish to the other can have a big impact. And we talked about walleye population exploding, bass population diminishing. Mm-hmm. They competing for the same food.
Well, in a sense, everything's eating round goby. I mean,
that's
people
incredible.
Who are fishing out there, freshwater drum, bass, perch, walleye, everything eats round goby. So they're definitely competing for that resource. And most things are like smelt as well. There's not perfect overlap between the species. They occupy different habitats. Right. But last year, the forage basin Lake Erie was down.
Yeah.
It was quite low.
Yeah. What else we got? Let's talk about that Cisco thing before I forget. You mentioned about stocking Cisco's in Lake Erie.
So Cisco are extirpated, so that just means they're extinct in Lake Erie, but not everywhere else. So historically, that was the largest commercial fishery in Lake Erie, really in all the Great Lakes. And so we're making an effort to attempt to restore the Cisco population. The goal is to stock 300,000 Cisco for about 10 years off of Dunkirk.
Each year?
Each year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep. What species are you putting them in there for to feed on?
Well, we're not right now. We're not specifically putting them in as feed. We actually hope that they don't get eaten. We're trying to grow them large enough so they don't get eaten.
Right.
But historically, that was one of the main diet items for a lot of the fish in Lake Erie.
How big are you putting them in there?
They're yearlings, so they're about 6 inches long.
Okay.
We're trying
How
to get
big does a Cisco get?
They can get very big, quite big. Yeah.
Wow. How big?
So, at least over a foot.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I didn't realize.
Yeah,
that.
As they get older,
Nice.
Yeah. It remains to be seen how large they'll grow in Lake Erie, and they're all marked with this oxytetracycline. So if we catch one and we take the bones will glow, and that's how we can tell if it's one of our stocked fish or not. So
wow, that's crazy. Before we forget too, you mentioned about sturgeon population. Mm-hmm. You're doing some sturgeon stocking.
Yeah, we're doing some sturgeon restoration too in the Cattaraugus Creek. We have a 25-year plan. We're going to be stocking in cooperation with the Seneca Nation 1,000 fish a year for 25 years.
Oh, what benefit would sturgeon be to the ecosystem putting them in?
That's a difficult question. It's not. I don't think it's a question of benefit. I think it's trying to restore populations that we collectively have decimated over the years.
Yeah. Because, obviously it was a commercial fishery at one time because Sturgeon Point got its name from that. And as I was telling you before we started the interview, that when I was a kid, we'd see them swimming around, and at night going spearfishing. And man, that would scare the Jesus out of you, seeing those things coming along.
Talk about bass. So bass population, as the walleye population has gone up for the last really 20 years, the bass population has been declining when you look at New York waters of Lake Erie as a whole, whereas in Buffalo, it's still holding strong. Anglers are still having very good days, but some of the spots that historically people were focused on, like Dunkirk Harbor, people aren't doing as well. You're not seeing those 50, 100 fish days anymore.
Right. Perch fishing in Western New York is a biggie. Matter of fact, I have customers who come from Ohio on a regular basis. They live right near Lake Erie, and they come to Western New York to go perch fishing because we catch some pigs.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because yellow perch in the eastern part of Lake Erie are really the bright spot for yellow perch right now. The Central Basin and even the Western Basin is not doing as well as it was several years ago. But our populations are still about what I would call average. people are catching about 32 fish per boat trip,
That's
which is
good.
pretty good. So
Yeah.
that's, you figure 2 folks in a boat catching
Yep.
32 fish. About 8% of folks got their limit, which is actually relatively
That
high.
is nice.
And only 33% of people struck out and didn't catch anything, which is also pretty good. I know it doesn't sound that good, but there's a lot of people who don't have the best day out there sometimes. We harvested 53,000 perch
Okay.
in New York. Recreational folks did.
Right.
26,000 on the commercial side.
Okay.
So that's about 50,000 pounds of perch total
Wow.
in New York. Which sounds like a lot, but it really isn't compared to the lake-wide harvest. Same with walleye. We just can't bring the pressure to bear in New York that these other jurisdictions
Right,
can.
right.
So we were in a stretch of about 4 years of incredible, or not incredible, good to very good recruitment for yellow perch. And that's really what it takes to produce good perch fishing in New York. Consecutive years of hatching
Right.
success. And then we just recently had 2 years of relatively low recruitment. So we expect over the next few years, as the older perch leave the system and these newer, younger year classes that aren't as good come in, it may decline a little bit, perch fishing.
You know, it's funny. I wonder if there's a correlation because the bass population is down, but the size of the fish is just crazy. You know, 6
Yeah.
is the new 5. That's my
Right.
expression. You know, over the years we have 1 8. We have I think 6 7s. I've lost count of the 6s now, and 5s are like, oh, it's a 5. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, that never happened. And the perch population are huge. Some of them are big. I had this little guy, the picture you're going to see on your screen right now, is this little guy from Ohio that caught, it was almost 15 inches.
Yeah.
And it was, the patterns on it were absolutely beautiful. It weighed almost 2 pounds. It was crazy.
Last year was an 11.5-inch average.
That's
in terms of
crazy.
what anglers were
Yeah,
catching
yeah.
in New York, that's huge. You don't see that anywhere else in Lake Erie.
Yeah. So I wonder if that correlation between big bass, big perch, and walleye, the size kind of on the smaller side, competition for food.
Yep, and just population. So
Yeah.
we're seeing the opposite, as you said, with walleye. Walleye growth is actually declining, and people aren't catching fish that are as big as they used to.
Right.
So people that are winning tournaments, sometimes the fish that win the tournament isn't as impressive as it was 10 years ago.
Right, right.
Yeah.
All right, so real quick on this note, because we get it all the time, I get feedback about it. The lake froze almost 100% this year. The comments came in on, well, it's going to be a great walleye spawn. Some of these year classes we have now were on the years that the lake wasn't, no ice.
Yeah. So we've talked about this
Yep,
before, but
yep.
we used to tell people you need good ice cover to have a good walleye spawn. But we've been, over the past decade, seeing the best hatching success and the best recruitment we've ever seen in Lake Erie, and it's been a period of relatively poor ice cover. So I don't think we can draw those same conclusions
Right.
anymore. So
Yeah.
I'm hesitant to predict it.
Yeah. Well, it's been crazy, and if it's even close to what it was last year, it's going to be a great year, and we're really looking forward. Jason, my friend, I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, Jim.
Always great information. Hey, if you've got comments or questions, please leave a like and a comment below. It always helps out, and we'll see you on the next video.